The Qing Dynasty. Part 1. The Rise of the Qing, from Steppe to Throne. In the early 1600s, the wind that swept across the northeastern plains of Asia carried more than just cold air and drifting snow. It carried the whispers of a rising people, the Manchus, known then as the Jurchens. They lived beyond the Great Wall in a land of forests, wide river, and mountains, far from the centers of Chinese power. But their eyes were fixed on the heart of the empire. These were not the first northern peoples to challenge China's ruler, but the Manchus were different. They were organized, patient, and led by a remarkable man named Nurhaci. Nurhaci was born in 1559 and rose from clan leader to founder of what would become a dynasty. At first, his world was small, just a patchwork of tribes and alliances in the region that is now northeastern China. But he was determined to unite the Jurchen clans under one banner. Through battles, diplomacy, and careful leadership, he did just that. In 1616, he declared the founding of the later Qing Dynasty, drawing inspiration from earlier Jurchen rule in China. It was the beginning of something far larger. Nurhaci's son, Hong Taiji, would continue what his father begun. He refined the Manchu identity, restructured their government, and adopted many elements from the Ming, the dynasty still ruling China. In 1636, he renamed the dynasty to Qing, meaning clear or pure. It was a poetic name for an empire that had not yet taken Beijing but was preparing to do so. Meanwhile, inside the walls of China proper, the Ming dynasty was struggling. It had once ruled with power and wealth, building the Great Wall and sending treasure fleets across oceans. But now, by the early 1600s, its grip had weakened. There were rebellions in the countryside. The court was plagued by corruption and infighting. Natural disasters ruined harvests and peasants began to starve. The people were restless. By 1644, a rebel leader named Li Zhicheng seized Beijing. The last Ming emperor hung himself in despair on a hill behind the Forbidden City. The heart of China had fallen, but it wasn't the rebels who would hold it for long. At this turning point, a Ming general named Wu Sangui, stationed at Shanhai Guan, the eastern gate of the Great Wall, faced a decision. With the rebels advancing and the Ming gone, he looked north to the Manchus and invited them to help defeat the rebels. The Manchus agreed, marched south, defeated Li Zhicheng's forces, and took Beijing for themselves. It was a calculated move, the one that changed the course of history. Thus, the Qing dynasty was born in power, though not yet in peace. At first, many Han Chinese saw the Manchus as foreign conquerors. Resistance simmered for decades, but the Manchus knew how to govern. They adopted Confucian principles, maintained Ming institutions, and wore Chinese-style robes when meeting with officials. At the same time, they preserved their own identity, requiring Han men to adopt the Q hairstyle, with a shaved forehead and a long braid at the back, as a symbol of loyalty. The early Qing emperors were skilled at balancing both worlds. They rewarded loyalty, suppressed rebellion, and slowly won the support of the Chinese people. Over time, the dynasty settled into a place. The Forbidden City, once ruled by Ming emperors, now echoed with the footsteps of Manchu prince and court officials. The banners of the Eight Banner System, the military and social backbone of the Manchu elite, flew above the palaces. And so, from snowy steeps and tribal alliances, the Qing took root in the heart of China. It was not an easy beginning, but it was a powerful one. The empire would not just survive, it would flourish. Part 2. The Golden Age. Kangxi, Qianlong, and the Qing at its height. By the late 1600s, the Qing Dynasty had taken root, not just as rulers of China, but as emperors in every sense of the world. The early struggles of conquest and rebellion gave way to a new phase, a time of prosperity, cultural richness, and expansion. And at the center of this golden age stood two emperors whose names would echo through the centuries, Kangxi and Qianlong. The first of these emperor, Kangxi, came to the throne in 1661. He was just a boy of 7 years old when he inherited the crown. The regents who ruled in his names expected him to be easily controlled, but they had underestimated him. By age 15, Kangxi took full control of the court and proved to be one of the most capable rulers in Chinese history. Kangxi ruled for 61 years, one of the longest reigns in the world. He was a man of sharp intelligence, deep curiosity, and personal discipline. He studied mathematics and astronomy, learned from Jesuit missionaries at court, and read widely in Chinese classics. He also understood that to truly rule China, he had to rule not only with power, but with wisdom. Kangxi's early reign was marked by challenges. Several powerful generals, men who had once helped the Manchus conquer China, began carving out personal fiefdoms in the south. This became known as the Revolt of the Three Feudatories. It was a serious threat to Qing unity. Kangxi, still a young man, led the campaign himself. After years of fighting, he defeated the rebellion, restoring imperial authority over southern China. But Kangxi was not only a warrior, he was a builder. He promoted agriculture, lowered taxes, repaired infrastructure, and encouraged scholarship. Under his reign, China entered a period of peace and stability that it had not seen for a century. He also traveled. Unlike most emperors who rarely left the Forbidden City, Kangxi toured the empire in grand inspection tours, sailing down rivers and riding across the countryside. He met scholars, villagers, and local leaders, listening to their needs and rewarding their service. These journeys deepened his understanding of the land he ruled and strengthened the loyalty of the people. As Kangxi grew older, he carefully trained his successors. His grandson Hong would become the next great emperor, Qianlong. Qianlong ascended the throne in 1735, continuing his grandfather's legacy with grandeur. He was elegant, educated, and deeply aware of his imperial image. Under Qianlong, the Qing Dynasty reached its territorial peak, stretching farther than any previous Chinese dynasty. From the steppes of Central Asia to the forests of Manchuria, the deserts of Xinjiang to the lush rice fields of the south. Like his grandfather, Qianlong was patron of the arts. He commissioned vast literary projects, including the famous Siku Quanshu, a massive collection of Chinese writings intended to preserve and control the intellectual heritage of the nation. He filled the imperial archives with calligraphy, paintings, and scholarly texts. His court became a showcase of cultural refinement. But Qianlong also held firm control. He was careful not to let scholars challenge Qing authority. Writings seen as politically dangerous were banned or censored. This was a dynasty that valued harmony but demanded loyalty. One of the most striking aspects of Qing rule was how it managed to be both multi-ethnic and unified. The Manchus ruled over a vast population of Han Chinese Mongols, Tibetans, Ufghars, and others. The emperors styled themselves not just as Son of Heaven, but also as Khan of the Mongols and protector of Tibetan Buddhism. They adopted different roles for different peoples, weaving together a complex imperial identity. This was most visible in the summer places. The mountain retreats built just outside Beijing in Chengde. Here, Mongol princes, Tibetan lamas, and Manchu nobles gathered during the hot months. Temples of many styles lined the hills, symbolizing a harmony of cultures under Qing rule. It was a soft but powerful image. One emperor, many peoples, one empire. Under Kangxi and Qianlong, the Qing population doubled. Cities bustled with trades. Silk and porcelain traveled along rivers and over sea routes to Europe. Foreigners admired the Chinese court for its order and elegance. Jesuit missionaries wrote glowing reports of imperial audiences. The Forbidden City gleamed with gold rooftops and crimson walls, still the center of civilization that seemed unshakable. But even within the golden light of prosperity, small cracks were forming. Qianlong's later years saw the rise of corruption, especially through his favored minister He Shan, whose greed became legendary. The treasury began to strain. Court life grew increasingly ritualistic and rigid. And beyond the court, the world was changing. By the time Qianlong abdicated in 1796 after ruling for 60 years, he had maintained peace and power, but he also left behind signs of strain that future rulers would struggle to fix. The Qing Dynasty has reached its summit. What lay ahead was a slow, difficult descent. For now, through the empire stood proud, from the Mongolian plains to the South China Sea. From the rice paddies of the Yangtze to the desert of Xinjiang, the Qing Golden Age had etched itself into the heart of Chinese history.